Florida. And I'm on the UN Women Subcommittee and helping with website updates and hopefully getting us all organized on one synchronized calendar, which I can talk about in announcements.
Sounds great. Thanks for being here. And who are you going to pitch it to, Brianna, for their 1 minute?
Yes, Barbara.
That's you, Barbara. I know you're trying to unmute. I cannot unmute you. Well, let's go to Janice and we'll catch you, Barbara. When I see that you unmuted, we'll come back to you. Janice?
Yes. Hi, I'm Janice Hawkins, and I'm from the Des Moines branch of WILPF. And I think I'm wanting to join the racial justice group.
Thanks.
And Margot Schulter?
Hello, I hope I'm unmuted. My name is Margot Schulter, and I'm in Nisenan territory in terms of Indigenous groups, and I'm with the Sacramento, California branch of WILPF. And the groups I'm active in are within AHR are the Immigration Subcommittee, the Racial Justice Subcommittee, and Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty Subcommittee, and also UN for Women. Thank you.
Margot, can you pass it to someone else to introduce themselves?
Oh, sure. Dee?
Hi, I'm Dee Murphy. I live in central Minnesota. I am actually interested in all of the committees. So I've been in attendance with the racial justice, ending mass incarceration, UN for Women, immigration and border militarization. And I had expressed an interest in the UN for people of African descent, but have not yet attended a meeting for that. Thank you. Over.
Barbara, I see that you're unmuted, so you go ahead.
Hi, my name is Barbara. Thank you, Dee. My name is Barbara Nielsen. I'm in the San Francisco branch. I'm a life member, which means that at some point I paid a bunch of money. And I am involved in the UN for Women subcommittee. Philip. Philip?
Good evening. Yes, good evening. I am Philip Poe. I reside in San Bruno, California, and I am a member of the San Francisco branch, and I am in the ending death penalty and mass incarceration subcommittee. Thank you.
You want to pass it on, Philip? How about Donna?
Hello, I'm Donna Peel from the Cape Cod branch of WILPF, and I'm just very happy to be here learning more about what's going on. I'm not on any subcommittees.
Okay. Joan?
Hi, we all have to keep ready to unmute instantly. My name is Joan Goddard, and I'm in the San Jose, California branch. And I'm, like Dee said, interested in all of the subcommittees. And I've been coordinating, as you all know, the AHR, and I'm grateful that George is going to keep us on track here today. Thank you. And I should call on Margaret Pecoraro. Hopefully you're ready.
Hi, I'm from Tucson, and I'm affiliated, I've been affiliating myself with the UN committee under the AHR. Oh, who would go next? Darian, how about you? You haven't talked yet.
Thank you. I'm Darian DeLu in Sacramento, California. I have attended the Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty Committee, and I am interested in many of the other committees, but I don't know, frankly, if I have time to be able to be active with any of them. And Samantha, have you had a chance to speak already?
No, thank you. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and on the Triad branch, and I have been active on the, well, attending the meetings for the racial justice, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, and immigration justice subcommittees here. I will pass it to Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Carrington, also Triangle Branch here in North Carolina. I have a lot of interest in a lot of the committees thus far. Racial justice and equity has been the one I've popped in the most. And I'm not sure who hasn't gone. So George, I'll ask if you can just call on someone. I'm also on my phone, so I can't see.
No worries. Wow, someone put a note up and now I can't read. Teresa Elamine. Can you unmute, Teresa?
Oh, no. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
We should be able to hear you, but we didn't.
You can't hear me?
Now I can. But just now.
Okay. Okay. Well, Teresa Elamine, Columbus, Georgia, home of Fort Benning and the School of Americas, the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. And I've attended all of the 5 subcommittees, and I'm serving now as a convener of the UN decade / reparations subcommittee. I'll pass it to Zalifia. I think, I'm not sure, I may be mispronouncing the name, but it's a name I haven't seen before.
Good evening, everyone. You said it right. It's Zalifa, and I have attended all but one of the meetings, and I'm part of the UN for Women subcommittee. Thank you. I can't see who else is on the call because I'm on my phone and my internet keeps being, yeah.
And what city are you?
I'm in Connecticut. Fairfield, Connecticut.
So you can't see. So Robin, you go next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Robin Lloyd, Burlington, Vermont. I'm on the Ending Mass Incarceration and Death Penalty Subcommittee so far. Very interested in the others as well. Thank you.
Welcome, Jennifer Bailey. We're introducing ourselves, saying where we are, our branch, and what subcommittee we're involved with advancing human rights.
Okay, sweetie. Oops.
So Jennifer, can you take yourself off mute and do your introduction, check in your name, where you are, your branch, and what of the advancing human rights subcommittees you've been active with?
Certainly. My name is Jennifer Bailey. I reside in North Carolina. I am with the, I suppose the closest thing would be member at large, and I also am working with anti-human trafficking.
And I believe the only person who hasn't gone yet is Eileen.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Eileen Krakowski from the Boston branch.
I guess I'm in an ad hoc committee and not directly related to one that already exists formally. I've been working with public banking, which is also in another issue committee, and affordable housing as much as I can, and the hunger and homeless, which I've been doing for decades.
And we've been joined by Tina, also your comrade there, Eileen. Tina, can you unmute yourself and tell us your name and where you are, your branch, and what of the Advancing Human Rights subcommittees you're affiliated?
Thank you. Good to be here. I am outside of Philadelphia, and I am on the immigration subcommittee. Thank you.
Wonderful. So is there anyone that has missed their chance to check in? From what I can see, we all have. Joan, I see you unmuted. Is there something you need to add?
I just wondered whether you said your location and everything, George.
I have not.
I thought maybe you had not.
So I'm George Friday, your host tonight, and I'm in Gastonia, North Carolina in the Triad branch. I am involved with, as the convener of the Racial Justice Subcommittee, and I've attended and participated in the Immigrant Justice Committee, attended the UN for Women, and Ending Mass Incarceration and the Death Penalty. The only one I haven't gone to is the UN Decade. So I'm
George,
yes?
I think Robin Lloyd may be in the meeting. I don't think she introduced herself.
Thanks so much, Teresa. Robin, can you unmute and introduce yourself? Sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, no, I did introduce myself, Burlington.
Oh, yes.
Burlington branch and Incarceration and Death Penalty Subcommittee.
Yes, that I do remember. So now I'm going to share my screen and put up our agenda. And I want you to think about if there's anything that is missing that we need to add. Anything that is so pressing, it cannot wait till another meeting. And if that's the case, please raise your hand or say stack, and we'll figure out what we need to add. You scroll through so you can see the whole agenda. And if your announcement isn't under announcements, there'll be space for you to say your announcement. Anything that is pressing, that absolutely has to be covered tonight. Joan Goddard.
Yes, we have sent out a couple times the minutes from the October meeting, including today. So hopefully people had a chance to look at those and are ready to either make corrections or else approve the minutes from October 28th. Thank you.
That sounds good. If you do have corrections for the minutes that we haven't seen yet, please send those to Dee. Dee, many thanks for being the keeper of the minutes and doing those for today. Is there anyone who has an issue with the minutes, who didn't read them or has a question with them? Is there any reason that we should not approve the minutes this evening?
Barbara Nielsen for the stack.
Yes, Barbara, go ahead.
I sent some not terribly huge suggestions for corrections to Dee a while ago, and I don't know if they've been incorporated yet, but hope that they will help make the minutes clearer.
Very good. Dee, did you get those or do you need them?
I have not seen them. I will check again. I know that the minutes were composed of a transcript that had been sent to me. It was about 11 pages long. Joan had already kind of screened for typos, so I'm happy to review anything that wasn't gotten in review of that transcript.
Okay, so noting that Dee hasn't yet seen Barbara's corrections, we'll hold off and approve the minutes by email. I'll help to coordinate that. So that's the way we'll handle it. I now want to share with you on the screen. Barbara, is there something you need to say?
No, I just need, well, I thought I.
Oh, okay. I'm going to share with you now the Advancing Human Rights flow chart. Almost everyone here, I expect, has seen this. I know that every subcommittee except UN for Women, maybe the UN Decade, I'm not sure, has seen or has reviewed this and given it the, oh, this makes sense kind of thumbs up. But we need together as an Advancing Human Rights Committee, need to agree if we want to organize ourselves this way, which would mean that each of the subcommittees, each of the 5 subcommittees have their own monthly meeting. And when we have our meeting as a whole, the clusters, the social justice cluster, as you can see, the UN cluster, as you can see, meet together. We'll talk about all those places where we overlap, any things that we need to share together. Then we come back together as the full Advancing Human Rights Committee to think about what our action steps are from those discussions. Are there any questions?
Yes, George. Many of us are in both clusters. So will there be a few minutes so that we can switch and that we would have an opportunity to be in both clusters? Could you explain that?
Well, I'll do my best. I've done breakout rooms on Zoom, but I've left and gone to a different room. When I've had to do that, you leave the room, you come back to the main room, and then you're assigned to another room. I set up our rooms already for this meeting so that you should be able to move from one to the other, but since it hasn't been tested, I don't know if it'll work. That means I will stay in the main room and not go to any of the clusters until I know that it's working. And someone who wants to change can come into the main room and I can send you to the different cluster. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Any other question? Oh, Barbara, you've got your hand up.
Yes. So this vision of this simply shows names of that have been assigned to either the 3 committees or 2 committees as they stand now. And I don't know what happened to my co-facilitator here, but there was another person with me, but that's probably neither here nor there. I don't know what happened to the larger boxes that used to be those clusters that had people's names in them. Has that gone now? Will there not be, is the cluster now just an easy shorthand for referring to 2 committees and or 3 committees and nothing more?
The clusters are for these 5 subcommittees and nothing beyond these 5 subcommittees. It names the people who have taken on the responsibility to convene those subcommittees for the monthly meetings. Is there something else that you need that's not here?
No, I don't understand what you're talking about. There had been names associated with each cluster indicating that people were going to be coordinators or chairs of the cluster, and that's not here anymore. Does that mean that there will be nobody at that intermediate level? And if we go into these cluster groups that say the committee will just rotate facilitating the breakouts of each cluster? Or is there something more than that? That was a concern for several months.
I think that is the decision of that particular subcommittee and the cluster itself in terms of the leadership and those responsibilities. That's not anything that I know. Someone else might have information about it, but so far, the meetings that we've had, the people in those meetings have decided who's gonna do what. Eileen, your hand is up and I hear your voice, Teresa, but let
Great.
Eileen ask her question first, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Okay. Thank you. I'm looking at this and thinking about the things that I've been supporting. And I'm thinking that I probably fit best in the racial justice group, which I think you're heading up, George, because the public banking, the affordable housing, and other legislative, and that's what I've been focusing on mainly, not only. The other legislative recommendations that come out of our local surge, showing up for racial justice group covers, seems to fit best into this. So if you don't mind, I'd like to be included with the racial justice in the future. The second thing is something that got triggered with Barbara Nielsen. I'm pretty sure Julie Kubiani was and is a very big supporter for the United Nations for Women initiatives. And I don't see her here tonight. I know she worked this weekend and was busy. So maybe that's what the co-chair was that you're thinking of, Barbara.
No, actually, Julie is not a co-chair. Jennifer Bailey has been the co-chair.
Well, so much for my error, sorry.
That's okay.
Not a problem, Eileen. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Eileen. That's a good question.
And Teresa?
So I go back to the racial justice. May I join that group, please?
Of course, there's no restriction on who can participate. We want everybody to participate.
Okay,
awesome.
Thank you.
Sure. Teresa?
Well, thank you. I'm the creator of the chart that has been discussed, Eileen, in all of the subcommittees, including in the UN decade, which has met once. Most of
We're losing you. You're lost.
The last thing we heard was most of, and then you went out.
attending the meetings, Eileen, of this Advancing Human Rights Committee, which is very specific to these areas of work. It doesn't take in so much the homelessness and other things, but racial justice seems to be a kind of catch-all for all the injustices that are race related. So I think you're correct in choosing that. I'm trying to address Barbara's confusion. The reason we put just your name there, Barbara, because only the conveners' names are there. It's never been a list of people in the different subcommittees. That's never been presented as part of this chart. It's only the conveners. And so what you see on the chart, what everyone sees are only the conveners. Thank goodness Samantha Turner agreed to take over ending mass incarceration and the death penalty. I was the former convener of that. All of us who are conveners have Zoom accounts, and that's kind of how we decide on who can take that kind of responsibility. So I think the question before us is if there are any objections to us being organized this way, and in committee meeting, subcommittee meeting after subcommittee meeting, it was a thumbs up, including in the UN decade. I think the UN for Women has been the only committee that showed some unreadiness. But as far as I know, all of the folks who attended all of the other subcommittees came to a kind of consensus about this chart because it's how we're operating anyway. Over.
George, you're muted.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you very much. I hear you, Darian. So Joan and Darian and Philip, have your hands up. I want us to have time to get into the clusters. I don't know unless y'all's hands are raised because you have objections to us moving forward. We need to hear those. But otherwise, I don't know why we need to spend time before we actually start, talking about the issues. So Joan and Darian and Philip. Go ahead, Joan.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that we needed to fit other subjects into the subcommittees we already have. It's perfectly possible to set up more subcommittees. That was one thing I wanted to say. And I have heard from a few people that they are not quite ready to go into the clusters today, and they'd like to hear reports from the subcommittees. But that's up to the group, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Not being ready is something we have to be aware of. Darian?
I think Philip's hand was up before mine.
Sure. Philip, go ahead.
Yes, my hand is up, but Jennifer Bailey is unable to raise her hand. So can you call on her and then either Darian or me after Jennifer Bailey?
Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. I have yet to receive an answer as to why it's advantageous to form these clusters as opposed to the way it was previously organized. It appears to offer an additional level or layer of separation between one another, what I would describe as bureaucracy, which in turn can defeat the ability to function on a timely basis. In the past, there's been objections raised about creating hierarchies, yet that appears to be what we're proposing tonight. And in terms of, I think the only explanation I ever received from Teresa when I asked her about the advantages to people that we serve with this reorganization, the only answer I got was that it was an opportunity to lift others into, specifically, I think her choice of words, women of color or people of color into leadership positions. Yet WILPF provides the opportunity for anyone, regardless of race or gender or any other characteristic, to form a committee in and of themselves without having to go through all of this hierarchy and what have you. All you have to do is form a committee around an issue and have 5 people. So if it's a matter of uplifting people into positions of leadership, that is already a provision within WILPF to do so without having to go through these reorganizations. So as I said, I have concerns in terms of some of these hierarchies, because if you look at the minutes, you'll see that by and large, the one that has had the less bureaucracy and allowing each person to participate equally on a project of interest was the UN for Women. And we have far more action and projects going on than any of these other clusters that you are identifying here tonight. And then
Thanks,
lastly,
Jennifer.
I have a
You've
concern
got
about
something else you want
achieving.
to say? Go ahead.
Yes, I have thank you, George. I have a concern about achieving consensus or quorums, given the people that have been assigned to these various clusters. Thank you.
Okay.
Over now.
Right. So hearing unreadiness, we're not ready, but I want to hear from the other people whose hands are up. But Jennifer, the motivation around the clusters, as far as I understand it, was about efficiency. Because if we're talking about racial justice and we're talking about ending mass incarceration, I wonder, isn't there a connection between racial justice and ending mass incarceration? So we're having separate subcommittee meetings, but some of our issues are overlapping. When is the opportunity to talk about those overlapping issues and any action opportunities those overlapping issues present? Whoa, how about having a cluster where once a month we get to meet together for 20 or 30 minutes? That to me was the prime motivation. I was brief, which is important. Let's be brief. So I see Samantha, Dee, and then Darian. Unless Darian, you want to go next because you were next in queue.
Actually, I thought Philip was next in the queue unless he was just raising his hand for Jennifer.
Oh yeah, he did. Were you raising your hand for Jennifer, Philip?
Yeah, and myself, I am just curious, where on the line of the flow chart, it says social justice cluster. Now, is there a person attached to that particular wording that is going to be in a leadership position that will have a title to go with social justice cluster or UN cluster?
Well, you know, Philip, no one had any conversations about titles. The social justice cluster is just those subcommittees that are connected to social justice, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, immigration justice, and racial justice. All of which, when you think about them, are social justice issues and have intersecting issues and intersecting opportunities. Same thing with UN cluster.
Well, can you answer the question I asked? And I'm sure that's
no, there is no title associated with those. We didn't discuss titles. It did not come up. Hierarchy was not a motivation for this process. Efficiency was.
So names and leadership positions will not be attached to those particular wordings of social justice cluster or UN cluster. Is that correct?
That is correct.
George, please call on me to answer Philip's question.
Please, no, I want George to answer the question.
I've answered it to the degree I can, Philip. There's not more information I can provide, but I do want to let y'all know, and I know there are folks on the stack, that the conversation now is not about being in the clusters. We will not meet in the clusters because there is hesitation to move on. There isn't comfort to move on. There's not consensus. Having not consensus, we will try to address your questions so that we can at least get clarity here. Teresa has a direct response. Teresa, please go ahead.
Just worried about leaders and titles. The three conveners in the social justice cluster would work together because there's already leadership established in the clusters by way of the conveners. So there is no extra layer. The chart was devised exactly as it appears. The conveners in the clusters are the ones who are the leadership inside of the clusters. That was the intent, Philip.
Well,
there is no other leadership.
George's answer was sufficient. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we've got Darian, Dee, Samantha, and Barbara.
Okay, thank you. This is Darian, and very briefly, I'm hearing discrepant things about the conveners of the subcommittees. On the one hand, I hear the people who had Zoom accounts became the conveners, and on the other hand, I hear that they are the leaders of the subcommittees. So I am fine with the subcommittees picking their own leaders on the criteria they choose. I just want everyone to understand that WILPF US has a Zoom account that is available for convening meetings of this kind. So anyone who wants further information on how that works is welcome to contact me. And one need not feel constrained by who has a Zoom account. That's why WILPF got the Zoom account. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Darian. Dee, and then Samantha.
Hi, yeah, I just had a couple of questions regarding the cluster format. Let's see. One of them was if Joan just mentioned that we can create additional subcommittees. And I'm wondering where additional subcommittees would fit under the clusters. And also, you said that people will meet for about 30 minutes, in accordance with the cluster setup. And I'm wondering who's going to spearhead the cluster meetings for 30 minutes, like who organizes that? And if there are additional people that form other subcommittees, how this would kind of manifest itself. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dee. Well, for tonight, the person who would set those up would be me. And it's just setting up breakout rooms in the Zoom account so that when we're ready, we can go to breakout rooms and meet in the clusters and talk about whatever we need to. So that was the plan. And I would imagine if in the future we do adopt this structure and use it, whoever's facilitating the meeting would have to set up time in the agenda and on their Zoom to have time for the clusters to meet during the monthly Advancing Human Rights Committee meeting. Sam, and then Barbara.
So this isn't a hierarchical structure. It's a way to enable all of the subcommittees to meet once a month and share by updating each other on anything that's going on that's they may need help with, and for sharing resources that they've been using I'll just take who said they are working with the homeless and for racial justice. Well, if they're working for the homeless and I'm doing ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, maybe I have somebody getting out of jail in Charlotte and I need help with resource. Maybe the immigration justice has immigrants coming up and they need, they have something, a question with housing or there's so many intersections. It's just a way monthly to share instead of going and doing these in silos, having everything done in silos. I have no idea what's going on in the UN clusters. I'd like to hear about them. I don't have time to go to the meetings. So it would be a good, I could drop in there and listen in to the updates. The Advancing Human Rights, the co-chairs themselves haven't been selected yet. So we would have to vote on it or choose them in some way. And they would, or we could switch on and off. The whole point is so we don't have a hierarchy. So we're working together and we are best using our resources and best joining our resources. That's the way I see it.
Barbara?
Thank you. By the way, I agree with the idea of hearing from subcommittees, but the original versions of this showed boxes and under the clusters with people's names in them. And that's where the first questions began from me, among others, about hierarchy. But it seems to me that maybe what's happening right now in this is an example, some of you may not know, in the Disarm and Wars Committee, which is actually a combination of two former separate committees, there are possibly a half a dozen concrete, discrete issues going on. We didn't form official subcommittees, but we have individuals working on different things. And when we have our monthly meetings, we don't call things clusters. We each report on what we're doing in the whole meeting. And the benefit of that is because it is that if something's happening under UN Security Council 1325, otherwise known as Women, Peace, and Security, that may in fact involve something going on in what, somebody took that off the screen? Sorry. I was just going to use that chart.
I can put it back up if you need it. I figured everybody had committed it to memory at this point.
No, not at all. That something to do with immigration may come up in if we're all reporting in a monthly meeting of AHR. Somebody may report something in immigration, and that's directly related to something that's going on, that somebody's working on in the UN for Women. And if we're separated into clusters, we might not find that out. So much of our work all throughout WILPF is interrelated. So if it makes people feel happy to consider themselves in a cluster, maybe even for emails or something, okay, if that's all this is doing. But there had been a really strong feeling that there would be people, separate people with separate intermediate hierarchical titles doing something with these two clusters that made several of us very uneasy with the idea. So I have there is a co-chair to UN for Women. It has been Jennifer Bailey since the beginning. And these were not chosen really because of who had, in fact, they're not chosen at all in our case, because of who has the Zoom account. So I don't know who started that, but I would appreciate that being put to rest. That was not the reason. So thank you very much.
Okay, so we've heard some of y'all's assumptions and thoughts and fantasies and anxieties about what may have been. Let's think about what is and what we want going forward so that we possibly can make some decision. Ashley?
Hi, yes. I just wanted to say that I definitely think that if we're talking about what structure would be, maybe having it be into the two groups and then have each of the subcommittees be recalled working groups. That way it's only two groups that are doing things, but each working group within each of those groups can focus on those specific issues that are listed there. And when we report back, it will be reports from either the social justice group or the UN cluster, UN group, and within those reports, we could have those working groups be able to report. If the issue is hierarchy, I'm still concerned or confused as to why we're talking about the structure when there's some other stuff on the agenda to get to, but that's just a suggestion in order to make people who are uncomfortable comfortable with the phrasing of how everything seems to be coming about.
Thanks for that attempt, Ashley. Is there anyone else?
Could we move to committee reports?
We can move to, yes, we can move to talking as a whole for a short time because we've eaten up a lot of time talking about what was, what could be, and what might be, but that's fine, that's y'all's choice. But we're not at a point where we can come to consensus on this structure tonight because there's still uneasiness among all. That's not the right word. Oh, Teresa's hand is up. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, George, I think we should move to brief reports from the conveners of the subcommittees. I would certainly like to give a report on the UN decade.
Well, great. You can be the first person to give a report on your subcommittee. What's happening with the UN decade, Teresa?
Well, we did meet once. I don't remember the date exactly. It was on a Friday, and we have our next scheduled meeting for this coming Friday, December 3rd, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And so I will send out a notice to all of the folks who attended the previous meeting, and to folks I know who have expressed interest, who are mostly members of the Black Liberation Caucus. And we may have a guest speaker, Akinyele Umoja, who is an expert on reparations and the UN decade, and he'll actually be speaking at the Fannie Lou Hamer Branch Human Rights Conference on December 11th. So I'm trying to get him to speak with us for a few minutes, as we did with Steve Deere speaking on the death penalty in our meeting for the EMIDP on November 15th. So I like having the guest speakers. to come in these early stages where we're trying to figure out our work plan. But the goal is to get to a work plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Someone else who is one of the conveners besides myself, I will talk about racial justice when folks are done, but there's Samantha and Tina and Barbara or Jennifer. So who wants to go next?
Sure, I can go ahead. So this, I've never done this before. I'm going to be convening the EMI-DP committee, subcommittee. The last time we met, as Teresa had mentioned, was November 15th. I did have to cancel the December 9th date due to a scheduling conflict, but we will meet as long as there's no problems with anybody on January 10th, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll send out an agenda shortly before.
Thanks so much. Tina or Jennifer or Barbara, although Barbara, you did say a lot about what you've done, but you may want to give an update just the same. So Tina and then Jennifer or Barbara. Tina, you're muted.
I was pulling up some notes. Jennifer go next, but anyway, our meetings have been looking at how we're going to run our subcommittee, how we want to run our subcommittee to best use the principles of inclusivity and to avoid colonial practices. And we came up with some ideas of how to do that, rotating, sharing. And our next meeting is going to be in January. We've also done a lot of working and know each other, what part of the country, what sort of things where our passions are in terms of immigration, what we're doing. So that is my report.
Sounds good, thanks. So UN for Women, who wants to report for UN for Women? Jennifer is not muted.
Jennifer or Philip, does one of you want to report? You've been following a lot of stuff.
I would toss it to Jennifer.
Thank you. I believe the last time we met, Julie had indicated originally an interest in organ trafficking. However, it has changed or shifted more toward rape, particularly in the Congo region, and she's working with her local branch or several women from the Congo about how to address that. Organ trafficking, however, remains a major concern for not only the United States, but also those who may be donors from the international countries, particularly those who are experiencing poverty. So what we have discovered in the US is there's a number of doctors that are not familiar with the testing protocols to assure compatibility of the organ with the patient. So there's been work I'm aware of in some of the hospitals to build awareness among physicians that are at the front line of this and having to make some decisions. And that I think that needs to be expanded on a national basis. The other area that I am exploring is the potential for litigation from human rights attorneys to look at institutions that are punitive towards children and violate children in the area of human trafficking. Now, I think that at this stage, I'd like to turn it over to Brianna, who's also working on, last I heard, was reproductive rights of women, and anything Barbara and Philip would like to add. Thank you.
Sure. I actually wasn't prepared to talk, but here we go. So yeah, I have done a lot of work within actually my graduate studies on reproductive rights and women, specifically in kind of two sectors. So one, looking directly at kind of the translation and negotiation processes from global level framework. So for example, 1325 and other UN resolutions, and how activist organizations actually understand and then employ those. And mostly within the Latinx community, I've been looking at that. And then what I was specifically looking into and working on within the committee recently is how that links to the trafficking for forced marriages and underage sex specifically. So I put together a resource literature list, as well as some summaries about some state laws and things like that throughout the US that is in our subcommittee folder full of resources. So yeah, I guess that's kind of all I have to say about that.
Thanks.
Awesome.
So the Racial Justice Subcommittee has met. Oh, Barbara, y'all gonna have 3 people reporting for your one subcommittee and taking up like 5, 6, 7 minutes of time. You want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't realize I was not muted.
No worries. So racial justice in our meetings, we've Tina said this too, you know, getting to know each other. Where are you? What kind of work are you doing that's connected to racial justice? Because we agreed that the work has to be based on and built on what you're doing locally. And in that conversation in racial justice is where we realize that, oh, my concern about what the police are doing in Gaston County is very similar to what people are doing in the Triangle in Alamance County with immigrant communities and all these things. So our next meeting is December 10th. I think that's a Friday at 2:00 in the afternoon. And that's all I've got on racial justice for now. Did everyone go? All of the subcommittees share? Yes? Excellent. All right then. So one of the things on this lovely chart that we are still not embracing, and we may not ever, but here at the top it says Advancing Human Rights Co-Chairs. We do not currently have co-chairs. Joan has convened the full body of the Advancing Human Rights Committee for many months and expressed quite clearly that she ain't having it anymore. And so someone else has to take that on. Those of us who are convening the subcommittees, we took that on, not making a commitment to continually chair it. And I know, I'm looking at your face, Tina Sheldon, I know some of us are anxious for other people to take that on as well. But for now, let's discuss or make a decision about how are we going to select co-chairs for Advancing Human Rights. Not who they're going to be. We're not trying to select them tonight. That may happen hopefully by February. But what would be the process that y'all recommend for identifying 2 co-chairs at least for the Advancing Human Rights Committee? I see your hand, Barbara. Go ahead.
I think it would be great, since we are such a diverse group, that we take a page out of the nominating committee's materials for board service. There's a short little form and a form for giving your activist background and why you want to take on a role. And I think it would be great, given the breadth and number of people we have, if people would be interested in taking on a leadership role at the committee level, that we have those available and people could fill them out. And then we could look at them and talk at an upcoming meeting in January and figure out what we want to do. If we want to have a meet and greet to talk about people's statements and why they want to do things, and then we could see if we can come to consensus on who we would like and also how many. So that would be my thought. And it could be, I was nominating chair for a while. I've got access to the materials. It could be very easy to take it down and make it easy for people to take a look at this stuff and fill out the information so we could all see it. So thank you very much.
You're muted, George.
Thanks, Samantha. Barbara, that's information from the nominations committee you're talking about, correct?
Yes, it is. It's information that went out about the board elections, actually, but it's very available. I have a copy of this year's, as a matter of fact.
And that's the process that you're recommending that we might use, okay? Philip?
Yes, I would hope and like to see hopefully 3 people advance themselves to be chairs of this in almost any committee now due to the sophistication of the Zoom process. One would probably monitor the chat, one would monitor the screen, and one would facilitate the overall operation of a Zoom call. I think a lot of people have not been able to be recognized because if 1 or just 2 people actually are doing the facilitating, I think it's terribly difficult. So a 3rd person in this format would probably be an incredibly big help. Thank you.
Okay. So that's more about what it looks like than how we get there, but it is helpful. So a recommendation for 3 co-chairs and possibly following the same nominations and voting process as happened with elections recently. Any other recommendations? So does silence mean you like the recommendation from Barbara for us to follow the nominations process and select that way?
George, mine's in the chat.
What's that, Ashley?
I said I put my rec in the chat.
Oh, okay, let me find it. Do you mind saying it? Because
Sorry.
I have a hard time scrolling through the chat.
Yeah, I was proposing tri-chairs with a submission period for qualifications and people's interest, and then a vote prior to the date you were talking about, or the vote taking place in February.
Okay. Great. Any other recommendations?
Yeah, hi, this is Steve.
See, you're seconding Ashley's recommendation?
I did second that. I think possibly a question and answer session or something so that we're sure, it's not a matter of not being happy with whomever is selected and working to undermine them. I understand that's happened in the past, and I feel like whomever is selected should be elected based on the information that they provide and the answers to the question, along with background. So I'm seconding that.
Great.
Do we have any idea who wants to do it? And
Margot gave a thumbs up as well. Janice is shaking her head like she thinks it's a good thing. Go ahead, Samantha.
I'm sorry. Do we have any idea who's going to be nominating themselves or nominating someone else, or who are the nominees?
We don't know yet.
Where will they come from?
Well, they have to come from here.
Right.
We are us, we are it. So, that's where we are. And Ashley says we're only discussing the process. That's true, Ashley. We're not making a decision tonight because we don't have the time, especially if we're going to do the nominations process and fill out the forms and stuff like Barbara suggested. Darian and then Barbara.
Just very briefly, I would just suggest that to those who are thinking of running, there may be good reason to run as co-chairs or tri-chairs. However, it is not very functional to elect people individually and then expect them to necessarily work well together. It's generally more productive if 2 or 3 people say, okay, we want to run as a team, because that way they hopefully have a working relationship.
That's a very good recommendation, Darian, that you know each other and you know you work well before you take that on. So, Brianna, you'll be our last commenter. And Dee put a question in the chat in terms of how the process happens. Barbara knows, Dee, where the nomination forms are. We'll look at that recommendation from Ashley that got lots of support and try to flesh that out. And whoever gets to facilitate next month gets to bring that process back as a proposal to the full group. Go ahead, Brianna.
I actually just wanted to react to Darian's comment, and it's very much in line with what Ashley just wrote in the chat. I'm kind of against having this formed as kind of a team running match like you would in like a school student government or something. I actually don't think that's a good idea, and I think it's counterproductive towards being diverse, equitable, and inclusive, especially for someone, for example, like me, who's newer in WILPF, but also I feel learning pretty quickly and getting pretty involved pretty fast, and who may be interested in a role like this and bringing in a younger voice and perspective to a position like this, but who may not have a team of 2 other people that they could run with.
You're muted, George.
Yes, I know. Well, that makes a lot of sense, Brianna. So we have some good recommendations here. And Teresa's
Yeah,
put in the chat.
and I see, I have another question or another comment as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm kind of in agreement with everyone about the tri-chair thing too. I know that in one organization, I'm, part of a tri-chair situation, and it's just more confusing. I think that if you can communicate with one person instead of trying to scurry around and get on board with 2 other people, it kind of centralizes the focus for, the direction that the team would take. Thank you. Over.
Sure. Brianna, I think your hand's still up because I didn't put it down. Let me know if you have something else to say. Teresa, and then Barbara, and then we have to close up this discussion. Oh, Joan too. Teresa, Barbara, Joan. Try to be clear and brief so that we can move on.
Well, you did say 2 minutes, I think. But for people who don't know, the Advancing Human Rights Committee has a history of having tried a tri-chair arrangement. And unfortunately, the 3 Black women didn't last long. They didn't know each other. They were from several different parts of the country, and they didn't have time to work together to really kind of develop a working relationship before they were given an agenda on the first night that they were made tri-chairs and told to run the agenda. And so it just was an awful situation for those of us who had a chance to see it. And it sounds like Darian is expressing a lesson learned from that experience, because it really is all about relationships. And since we work together, people should identify themselves now if they're interested in running, and then they can get together and work together. All of the paperwork bureaucracy does not get to the working relationships that are required to be tri-chairs. And I am not interested in being one of the tri-chairs or co-chairs. I'm not interested. I would really appreciate if younger women did step up and get together among yourselves and decide you're gonna work together to be the kind of force we need as a leadership over advancing human rights. Over.
Thanks for that, Teresa. We've got Joan and Barbara with your brief and clear comments about moving forward. We've had our history lesson already. Joan, Barbara.
I just wanted to say to Ashley, we really welcome you and hope that you will be a part of this, and do not hesitate. And I second what Teresa said as far as the younger people getting together and sharing the work. Thank you.
Awesome. Barbara, hey, Margot, is your hand up or are you just trying to do something?
Margot, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Maybe she's typing or something. Barbara?
I don't know. Margot, did you want to talk to us or not? There you are.
No, whatever happened was a technical glitch. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to say the idea of this is a new experiment that we have undertaken in WILP for the resurrection of this committee, and putting so many different topics together. And we have younger people here, we have new people here, we have some of us who've been around for a while. There's no reason at all that three co-chairs can't divide up duties so that, you send agenda items to somebody, somebody else does emails, whatever. The point is that one person doesn't have to do it all. And it could be established that there's an AHR chair that they email, that they share, and they divvy up what they are best at doing and while they learn. And I think everybody on this committee would be thrilled to have three relatively new, relatively younger people, especially young women of color who would like to step up and who can deal with tech stuff and invite people to help with tech stuff. So I don't think not knowing each other going in is necessarily a bad idea. And we're all doing this together to move us forward. So there's an enormous amount of goodwill going on right now and leading us into 2022. So I think the tri-chairs idea, which I couldn't understand at first, now I TRI chairs, I think it's a great idea. So thank you all who are thinking about it.
And thank you in advance to the people who will help. I will help a little bit to take these recommendations and try to create a proposal for what we will do. And that proposal will come to our January meeting. Because we're moving on. And we're moving on, putting Brianna, where are you, Brianna? There you are. On, put you in the spotlight because we're going to talk about the listserv. Dee, I do not know who's writing the proposal. I will help, but basically we'll take the notes from the chat and the recording and try to figure out what that looks like as a proposal for moving forward around the AHR chair. And that whoever's doing the next meeting will, put that on the agenda and help craft the proposal.
George, I'll help you.
Oh, someone volunteered. That was Barbara Nielsen said she would help. And Ashley is willing to help. This is awesome. And I said I would help a little bit. And I mean that. So talk to us about the listserv, Brianna. Where are you?
The listserv or the website?
Yeah.
It's both of those.
Okay.
Let me see if there is a particular order. No.
Okay. Well, I volunteered to work with Joan on the website. We're still waiting for information from all the subcommittees, logos, descriptions of kind of the goals of the subcommittees would be great. And then we're going to put all of that together and kind of organize it. And then that'll be kind of what's going up on the website. But we're also looking at kind of language to say that some subcommittees, are still in development, and also that there's opportunity to develop other subcommittees. So that will also be included. And Joan, of course, can talk more about this. But I will talk more specifically about kind of the listserv and connecting issues also that everyone's having. Especially given our last meeting where we spent a lot of time going back and forth about meeting dates and how do we make sure everyone can be involved and invited. And so I actually have already created a calendar that everyone will have access to. I just need for the conveners or whoever in the subcommittees will be in charge of putting up meetings so that I can put their emails in the calendar. They will have complete editor access to this, and the calendar is public. And I will post that link right after I'm done posting all these links for Eileen. And that way you can see it. The calendar right now is completely blank because I don't have everyone's December meetings. But once I have them, I will put up the first round of meetings so everyone can see what it'll look like. And then starting from there, you all will be able, each subcommittee, to put in their meeting times, put in special events or anything that you want the entirety of the committee to know about. And that will be up, and you can color code it. You can link it to calendars you already use, whether that's Google or iCal or Outlook, whatever it is. And then that way everyone will have shared, public, easy access to what everyone else is doing.
Very good. So you will need from us, each subcommittee, some kind of description and perhaps a logo if we have one. When do you
Yes.
need that by, Brianna?
I think Joan had set a date for that. She can give a specific date.
Okay.
It's on the agenda, December 15th.
Yes.
December 15th. Okay.
And then I also would need from each subcommittee, whoever, whether it's multiple people or not, but at least one person from each subcommittee, I need their preferred email address that they want me to link to the calendar.
Okay. So I hope everyone's got that. The preferred email to link to the calendar, a description, I imagine just a few paragraphs of your subcommittee, a logo if you have one, by December 15th to Brianna or Joan. Joan, what do you have to add about this?
I think that was great. Actually, I think Brianna's ready for the calendar information sooner, and that should be relatively quick. And as far as the website information, that's a date when Brianna and I can work with it somewhat before we send it to Michael, who is a teacher and has plans to use it during the school break. So that's why the date is December 15th, to try to give us time to get things to him. But obviously after that is also welcome. Thank you.
Okay. And the listserv, how do we get to the listserv so that you're not the only person using it?
Right. It's quite possible that that's not the way it actually got set up, but in any case, we plan to change it after this meeting. My recommendation would be that we set it up so that when the way that it works for a lot of groups, including some of our issue committees, is that when you get a message from the listserv, then when you reply, then the address that goes up on the to place on your reply is just the person who sent it. And then you can add anybody you want to. In fact, you could copy and paste the whole listserv address up there, but it doesn't automatically send it to everybody. And that way we get fewer messages that say yes and thank you and all sorts of things that when a lot of us have a lot of email, we're glad people are appreciative, but it's too much. So that's my recommendation, that we set it up that way, because it is flexible. You can just send it to a reply to the person who sent something. You can send it to everybody. You can add other email addresses, of course, to the person who sent it, or even to other people outside of the listserv. There are other methods. The other one that I'm most aware of is that when you click to reply, you get a message that gets sent to everybody. So if people have recommendations, probably the best thing would be to write to AHR chair, unless you feel ready to say, this is what we want right now.
Please write to AHR chair so that we can be done in 10 minutes as we should. Tina, you have something brief?
Nope.
I just have a question. What is the address for the listserv, Joan? I mean, is there you're explaining how it would work if we reply, but.
Oh, the address is the address at which you received a message today from me, and also.
So if you wanted to send a message, I would use that address.
Friday. Yeah. It's a lot of letters.
ADVHUMAN-RTS.
Right. Yeah. That. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. WILPF, etc. Yeah. Yeah. The two messages that have been sent so far
So we just
Or
type that
in-
in the address and then it sends to everyone. Okay.
or copy and paste it or whatever. Well,
Brianna put it in the
Okay.
But it
chat
doesn't,
too.
it
great.
does not work at this time. People should be clear.
Well, we're not too sure about that because somebody used it and didn't get any message that said, oh no, you can't send to it. So we think maybe nothing will need to be done to change it. But maybe something needs to be done to be sure that, what pops up is the person who sent it. So we'll need to work on that a little bit. Is there anybody who really objects to only having the email address for the person who sent something be what automatically pops up?
No, I think that's good. Yes, it's just a reply instead of reply all.
Yes.
Right.
Then,
That's right.
and then if you want to reply all you have to do is copy and paste.
A reply.
Fine.
Okay.
Or add more even who aren't on the list.
Or hit reply all.
Right.
Maybe. We'll find out how all that works.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Get
Thanks
back.
for setting it up.
Well, we certainly had a robust discussion this evening. And now we're almost done, thankfully. Any announcements? Anyone? Announcements? Dee has her hand up. I hear Teresa's voice. Teresa, you want to go, then Dee?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, no, she can go ahead.
Well, I think you were going to announce some things, Teresa, and I just had a couple of questions for clarification. So I can wait for your announcement first.
Well, Dee, it makes more sense for you to go because you're Friday.
I might as well mention. Well, I just want to mention, because it's not a long thing, but the Fannie Lou Hamer branch Human Rights Conference is really taking shape. And I want to thank Cynthia Lazaroff for sending it out to her big list today, and World Beyond War for sending it out to their big list. But I'm still a bit nervous about us getting the goal of 150 participants, hoping that many of them would be WILPF US participants, but the registrations are moving slowly. So if you can encourage people, because I'm talking to Ellen about actually live streaming the event on the Southern Anti-Racism Network groups, which total well over 2,500 people, because it's not a webinar, it's a conference, and we have to have people ready to do the work that we come up with as the action plans coming out of the conference. So George, Ellen Schwartz, Rebecca Irby, and a number of us are working together on the tech stuff, but it's going to be an exciting conference covering most issues that we talk about in this committee. So if you haven't registered, I would urge you to register. Thank you.
Great. Dee.
Hi, everybody. Apologies, I got one arm on my glasses here, so I knocked it off. So I guess I'm pretty obtuse, but it appears to me like there's still a lot of things that are up in the air. And I just have a couple of questions for points of clarification on what's happening. One regarding the calendar. We're asked to send descriptions. Should there be a point person, or does everyone just send random descriptions, or should people in the subcommittee send the descriptions to the conveners? Who can then
Brianna, those of us who are conveners need to write up a description of the subcommittee, send that to Brianna. If we have a logo, also send that to Brianna. We also have to send to her the email address we want connected on the calendar.
Okay, that answers that question. Thank you. And then the other question is still on the process of electing co-chairs. There's 4 people that have volunteered to work on the proposal. I don't know if this is because Joan is still, interim co-chair. I'm wondering, is it like, do we all contact Joan, or how does that work? Because we have people volunteering, but no coordinated, like, how do we work as a team? And nobody's kind of pulling that together. Also, I did hear Barbara's name mentioned in sending and collecting forms for applications. I don't know that Barbara's accepted. So should we all reach out to Barbara? Anybody that's interested, or how is that
I
going to
would
work?
say if absolutely, if you're interested in being a co-chair, send that email to AHR chair for now, which Joan gets that.
Yeah.
And my recommendation was that the 4 of us who are working on a proposal, hand that over to whoever is facilitating our next meeting, which we're going to set up the next meeting now, and they add that proposal to the next meeting's agenda. And that's the way I recommended that we proceed.
Okay, thank you.
And, also, Joan needs to be part of this process, right? I mean, we need to make sure that like, I'm going to give forms, but it seems to me that Joan would be kind of overseeing it without adding too much to her workload, like almost none, but so she knows. Or is that not what other people were thinking of?
I wasn't thinking of anything but Joan's on the stack. You speak for yourself, Joan.
Yeah. Okay. 2 things. One, do use the AHR chair
right.
at us.org, both for the things as George just mentioned, but also rather than sending everything to Brianna, if you'll send it to that address, then Deanna and I will work with it as far as the calendar and the
website
and so on. Yeah, especially the website. But
Great.
if you grab Deanna's address from the chat, I hope. I didn't see it yet, but I haven't looked at carefully.
It's there.
Calendar things can go directly to her. Getting that together, and it would be good to get that right to her, and she's the one working on that. As far as the process for the co-chairs, unless someone else wants to step up to coordinate that, then send the things as George just said to AHR chair at wilpus.org, and I will, we'll find the people to do that without taking more time right now, as George would say. Thanks.
Thanks, Joan.
Thanks, Joan. So speaking of calendars, please look at yours and consider when our next meeting might be. This is the last Monday in the month. The last Monday in December is the 27th.
We agreed to skip December, I think.
Oh, you agreed to skip December. So that means the last Monday in January is the 31st. Do people feel?
Guess why that's on the agenda?
Pardon?
Guess why that's on the agenda listing?
Right. So the 31st, same time?
Wait a minute. Wait,
Yes.
oh, wait. Hold on. I had the wrong date. Yeah, Monday the 31st, January.
That's right. And now we need someone to take on facilitating, or maybe 2 or 3 people. Who's willing to facilitate the January meeting? Dee Murphy.
Yes.
And Ashley Carrington. We love you. We love you both. Thank you so much. So you guys can get together and coordinate. We will work on the proposal for the co-chairs deal. Teresa?
Thank you, Ashley and Dee.
Just a quick question for Darian. Is the board meeting tomorrow night? And did you get my request for that? And I just haven't seen anything about it yet.
The board meeting is tomorrow night. Requests don't go to me. They go to secretary@wilpfus.org. So unless you've sent it to that person, I don't know that you'll get notified. And anyone is welcome to attend the board meeting. contact secretary@wilpfus.org.
Great. I typed that in the chat, but I'm not that fast. Maybe somebody who's faster typer.
I'll do it.
Okay, I'm encouraging you to save the chat. I appreciate and thank you for your time and energy and goodwill and faith and great energy, because that's all been present during this meeting. Have a wonderful Hanukkah and holidays and whatever you do that celebrate the solstice period and the end of the year. I'll see you in January. I'll
Thank
see
you,
some of y'all
George.
at subcommittee.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Great job, George.
Thanks,
Can I
George.
talk with you,
Thank you.
Georgia?
All right. Bye.
Night, everybody.
Oh, Eileen, you all right?
No, I'm not. I'm hoping that if there's a subcommittee meeting, you might make sure that I'm on the list. I want to participate. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.